Bear cub was trapped under a collapsed snow tunnel. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you loved my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The morning light sparkled across the snow-covered valley, casting a magical glow over the small log cabin nestled among tall pine trees. Inside, little Noah played on a soft blanket near the large bay window, his tiny fingers grasping at colorful wooden blocks. Just 10 months old, Noah's curious blue eyes were always watching, always learning about the world around him. His mother, Lily, hummed softly in the kitchen while preparing breakfast. The savory smell of pancakes filled the warm cabin as Noah's father, Ben, stacked firewood by the crackling fireplace. Their family had moved to this remote cabin just 3 months ago, seeking peace away from the busy city life. Outside, the winter landscape stretched endlessly, pristine and untouched except for a set of small paw prints leading from the forest edge. A young bear cub, barely 5 months old, ventured away from its den while its mother slept. The little cub, with the chocolate-brown fur and curious eyes much like Noah's, playfully bounded through the snow, diving into drifts and creating tunnels with joyful abandon. The cub's adventures brought it closer to the cabin than any wild animal had ventured before. Noah pressed his small hands against the cold window glass, his attention captured by the movement outside. He watched with wonder as the bear cub rolled and tumbled through the snow, unaware of how fragile its snow tunnels were becoming as the morning sun strengthened. Lily glanced at Noah and smiled. "What do you see out there, little one?" she asked, not expecting the baby to answer. Noah babbled excitedly, pointing his chubby finger toward the window. Lily walked over, but from her angle the bear cub had disappeared behind a large snowbank. "Just the pretty snow, isn't it?" She kissed Noah's head before returning to the kitchen. Noah continued watching, his eyes wide with fascination. The bear cub had dug an elaborate tunnel system through a particularly large snowdrift about 50 yards from the cabin. As the cub disappeared deeper into its snow maze, a faint rumbling sound echoed across the valley. The weight of the snow, weakened by the sun's warmth, suddenly gave way. In an instant, the cub's joyful play turned to panic. The snow tunnel collapsed, burying the small creature under a heavy blanket of white. A muffled cry, desperate and afraid, carried through the crisp morning air. Noah's head tilted to the side. Something had changed. The playful creature was gone, and now strange sounds reached his ears. He whimpered softly, pushing against the window as if trying to understand what had happened to his newfound entertainment. Ben approached, ruffling Noah's soft hair. "What's got you so excited today, buddy?" But before he could follow Noah's gaze, Lily called from the kitchen. "Breakfast is ready. Can you put Noah in his high chair?" Ben scooped up his son, who squirmed and reached back toward the window, making urgent noises that neither parent understood. If only they knew that just beyond their peaceful home, a young life was struggling, its cries growing weaker with each passing minute beneath the crushing snow. As Noah was settled into his high chair, his eyes remained fixed on the window. Outside, the bear cub's mother still slept deeply in their den, unaware that her child was in danger. The collapsed tunnel had created a small air pocket around the cub's face, but the weight of the snow pressed against its tiny chest, making each breath more difficult than the last. Snow continued to fall gently from the sky, slowly covering the signs of distress, erasing the evidence of the cub's predicament. Only Noah, with the innocent awareness that sometimes only children possess, seemed to sense that something was terribly wrong beyond the frosty glass. As the family settled around the breakfast table, Noah refused to eat. He pushed away his spoon, his tiny face scrunched with determination. His eyes never left the window, and small whimpers escaped his lips. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Lily asked, wiping maple syrup from her son's chin. "Aren't you hungry this morning?" Noah struggled in his high chair, making urgent sounds while pointing toward the window. His normally cheerful face was clouded with concern. "Maybe he's not feeling well," Ben suggested, pressing his palm against Noah's forehead. "No fever, though." Lily sighed. "He was fine earlier. Perhaps he's just having one of those days." Outside, the snowfall intensified. The trapped cub's cries grew weaker as its small body temperature dropped dangerously low. Each labored breath created a tiny cloud in the air pocket that was slowly shrinking around its face. The cub's hind legs were completely immobilized by the weight of the snow, and it could barely move its front paws. Back in the warm cabin, an unexpected sound cut through the peaceful morning atmosphere. The radio, which had been playing soft music in the background, switched to an emergency broadcast. "Attention residents of Pine Valley. This is an emergency wildlife alert. A mother bear and her cub have been spotted in the northeast sector of the valley. The mother appears distressed and potentially aggressive. Wildlife officials advise all residents to remain indoors, secure all food sources, and report any sightings to the ranger station immediately. Do not, under any circumstances, approach the bears." Ben and Lily exchanged concerned glances. "That's not far from here," Ben said, standing to look out the window. "I better check that all our trash is secure in the shed." "Be careful," Lily warned as Ben pulled on his heavy coat and boots. Noah began to cry harder, his little arms reaching toward the window with increasing urgency. His cries turned into screams, something so unusual for their typically happy baby that Lily felt a chill run down her spine. "Noah, sweetheart, what's wrong?" she asked, lifting him from the high chair and holding him close. But instead of calming down, Noah squirmed and pointed, tears streaming down his reddened cheeks. Ben opened the door, letting in a blast of cold air. "I'll be right back," he promised, stepping outside into the swirling snow. As the door closed behind him, Noah's cries reached a fever pitch. Lily walked him around the cabin, bouncing him gently and whispering soothing words, but nothing calmed him. She tried everything: his favorite stuffed rabbit, a colorful rattle, even the silly dance that always made him giggle, but Noah remained fixated on the window, inconsolable. Outside, Ben secured the trash bins in the storage shed and was about to head back when a faint sound caught his attention. He paused, listening intently. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but then he heard it again. A weak, muffled cry unlike anything he'd ever heard before. Curiosity and concern propelled him forward, away from the cabin and toward a large snowdrift. The crying seemed to be coming from beneath the snow. Ben hesitated, remembering the emergency alert about the bears in the area. Could this be related? He should go back, call the rangers, and stay safely inside. That would be the sensible thing to do. But the cry came again, weaker this time, and something in the sound, a desperation, a fading hope, made the decision for him. He couldn't walk away. Inside the cabin, Lily had reached her breaking point. Noah's screams had gone on for 15 minutes straight, and nothing she did made any difference. Worried that he might be in pain or seriously ill, she decided to call their doctor. As she reached for her phone, she glanced out the window and froze. Ben was kneeling in the snow, digging frantically into a large drift, his bare hands scooping away snow without any regard for the biting cold. What on earth was he doing? "Ben!" she called out, though she knew he couldn't hear her. Her heart raced as she remembered the wildlife alert. If a mother bear was in the area and Ben was near her cub, The thought was too terrible to finish. Noah had suddenly gone quiet in her arms, his tear-stained face serious as he watched his father through the window. His little hand reached out, pressing against the glass, and he made a soft cooing sound. Lily's instincts screamed danger, but she couldn't leave Ben out there alone. Making a split-second decision, she wrapped Noah in his warmest blanket, tucked him securely in his carrier, and strapped it to her chest. Then she pulled on her coat, grabbed her phone, and headed for the door. "We're going to help Daddy," she whispered to Noah, who had become strangely calm. "But we'll stay back, okay, just to make sure he's safe." As Lily stepped outside with Noah, Ben had managed to dig about 2 feet into the snowdrift. His fingers were red and numb, but he kept digging. The cries were clearer now, and he knew without a doubt that some creature was trapped and dying under the snow. "Ben!" Lily called, trudging through the snow toward him but maintaining a safe distance. "What are you doing? Did you hear the alert about the bears?" Ben looked up, surprised to see his wife and son outside. "Something's trapped under here," he called back. "I can hear it crying. I think it might be injured." "It could be the bear cub," Lily warned, her voice tense with fear. "We need to go back inside and call the rangers. The mother could be anywhere." Before Ben could respond, a deep, menacing growl emanated from the tree line about 50 yards away. Both adults froze, their eyes locking on the massive form emerging from the forest. The mother bear stood on her hind legs, her dark eyes fixed on the humans near the snowdrift where her cub was buried. She dropped to all fours, her powerful muscles tensed as she prepared to charge. "Don't move," Ben whispered, slowly straightening up from his kneeling position. "I'm going to draw her away. When I do, you run back to the cabin as fast as you can." "No," Lily hissed, clutching Noah tighter. "We stay together." The bear took a step forward, another threatening growl rumbling from deep in her chest. She was enormous, at least 6 feet tall on all fours, with powerful limbs and teeth that could tear through flesh with terrifying ease. Noah, who had been quiet since they stepped outside, suddenly began to move in his carrier. But instead of crying, he made a strange humming sound, almost like he was trying to sing. His tiny hands reached out toward the bear, not in fear, but with a curious, gentle motion. The mother bear paused, her head tilting slightly as if confused by the sound coming from the small human. For a moment, everything was still. The humans barely breathing, the bear watching, and Noah humming his strange little tune. Then, without warning, another sound joined the standoff, a feeble cry from beneath the snow, weaker than before but still audible. The mother bear's attention snapped to the snowdrift, her aggressive stance immediately shifting. She let out a different sound now, not a threatening growl, but a distressed call. "That's her cub," Ben whispered, understanding dawning on his face. "It's trapped under the snow, and she can't get to it." As if to confirm his words, the mother bear approached the snowdrift, sniffing anxiously and pawing at the surface, but her large paws were not made for careful digging. She looked from the snow to the humans, her eyes wild with a mother's desperation. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. Noah squirmed so forcefully in his carrier that Lily had to adjust her hold. His little face was animated with purpose, and he pointed directly at the spot where Ben had been digging. "He knows," Lily whispered awestruck. "Somehow, he knows the cub is there." The mother bear seemed to understand too. She backed away several paces, still watching the humans intently but no longer threatening them. It was as if a silent understanding had passed between species, an agreement that transcended language and fear. Ben looked at Lily, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded slowly, terrified, but somehow trusting in Noah's strange certainty and the bear's apparent restraint. "I'm going to keep digging," Ben said quietly. "Stay where you are." He turned back to the snowdrift and continued to dig, his movements more deliberate now. The mother bear watched from a distance, pacing anxiously but allowing the human to work. Lily stood rooted to the spot, cradling Noah, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. The situation was impossible. They were feet away from a wild bear that could kill them in seconds. Yet here they were, trying to save her cub while she watched. It defied everything she knew about wildlife safety, yet something deeper than knowledge was at work here. Something primal and connected to the bonds between parents and children that seemed to transcend species. As Ben dug deeper into the snow, his fingers finally brushed against something soft, fur. He cleared more snow away, revealing the small limp form of the bear cub. Its eyes were closed, and it barely moved as the cold air touched its face. "I found it," Ben called softly, his voice shaking with cold and emotion. "But I don't think it's breathing." The mother bear let out a mournful sound that echoed through the valley. She took several steps forward, causing Lily to instinctively back away, but Ben remained still, his hands gently cradling the small, motionless body. "Ben," Lily whispered urgently. "Please, we need to go." But Ben couldn't move. The cub's fur was ice-cold against his skin, its tiny body completely still. He had seen death before, his father's passing 3 years ago, a deer hit by a car on the mountain road, and the stillness was unmistakable. A wave of sadness washed over him as he looked at the mother bear, seeing the same grief he had felt when his own father died reflected in her wild eyes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly to the bear, not sure why he was speaking to a wild animal as if she could understand. "I was too late." Noah suddenly began to wriggle in his carrier, making distressed noises and reaching out with increasing urgency. His little face turned red with effort as he strained toward his father and the lifeless cub. "Noah, stop," Lily pleaded, struggling to hold him securely. But Noah was inconsolable, his cries growing more desperate. The mother bear's attention shifted to the baby, her head tilting as she watched his distress. Something in Noah's cries seemed to resonate with her in a way none of them could understand. Ben looked down at the cub one more time, unwilling to accept that they had found it too late. Then he noticed something, the faintest movement of fur around the cub's nose as a tiny puff of vapor escaped into the cold air. "Wait," he called out, hope surging through him. "I think it's still alive. It's breathing, but just barely." The mother bear seemed to understand the change in Ben's voice. She huffed and paced, her eyes never leaving her cub. Noah's cries softened to whimpers, his tiny hand still reaching out. "We need to warm it up," Ben said, his mind racing. "If we don't get its body temperature up quickly, it won't survive." He unzipped his jacket with one hand, still cradling the cub with the other. "I'm going to put it inside my coat," he told Lily, his decision already made. "Ben, no," Lily protested. "It's a wild animal. Even if you save it, the mother might still attack us. We need to call the rangers." "There's no time," Ben insisted. "Look at her. She's not going to attack. She knows we're trying to help." It was true that the mother bear's behavior was unlike anything they had ever heard about. Despite her size and strength, despite the natural instinct to protect her cub by attacking anything that touched it, she was keeping her distance, watching with what could only be described as desperate hope. With gentle movements, Ben tucked the small cub inside his jacket, pressing the cold body against his warm chest. "Come on, little one," he whispered. "You can make it." Lily watched in disbelief as her husband stood in the snow, holding a bear cub against his heart while its mother observed from just 20 feet away. The scene defied everything she knew about wildlife, about safety, about the natural order of things. Yet something about Noah's reaction, about the mother bear's restraint, made her wonder if they were experiencing something beyond ordinary understanding. "We should go back to the cabin," Ben said, his teeth beginning to chatter as the cold seeped through his open jacket. "I can warm it up better there." "The cabin?" Lily's voice rose in panic. "You want to bring a bear cub into our home with its mother right outside? Look at her." Ben nodded toward the bear. "She hasn't attacked us when she could have 100 times over. I think she knows we're trying to help." As if to confirm his words, the mother bear made a soft huffing sound and sat down in the snow, her eyes never leaving her cub. She was still alert, still dangerous, but the aggressive stance was gone. "This is insane," Lily muttered, but she knew Ben was right about one thing. The cub needed immediate warmth to survive. "Fine, but we call the Rangers the minute we get inside." They began moving slowly toward the cabin, Ben cradling the cub inside his jacket, and Lily with Noah strapped to her chest. The mother bear rose to her feet and followed at a distance, tracking their movement with unwavering attention. When they reached the porch, Lily turned to look at the bear, who had stopped at the edge of the clearing. "What if she tries to break in?" "We'll cross that bridge if we come to it," Ben said, his focus entirely on the small life pressed against his heart. "For now, let's just try to save her baby." Once inside, Ben carefully placed the cub on a blanket near the fireplace. Its breathing was shallow but more visible now, small clouds of vapor appearing with each exhale. The cub's eyes remained closed, its limbs limp. "Get me some warm towels," Ben instructed, rubbing the cub's body gently to stimulate circulation. "And honey. Bears eat honey, right? We need to get some energy into it once it's warmer." Lily placed Noah in his playpen, expecting him to cry at being separated from the action. But to her surprise, he was calm, watching intently as his father worked to save the cub. She hurried to get warm towels from the dryer and found their jar of locally sourced honey in the pantry. As she returned to the living room, a loud thud against the front door made her jump. The mother bear was on the porch, her massive paw scraping at the wood. "She's trying to get in," Lily gasped, clutching the towels to her chest. Ben looked up from the cub, his expression torn between compassion for the mother and concern for his family's safety. "She's worried about her baby. Talk to her." "Talk to her? Are you serious?" Lily stared at her husband in disbelief. "Yes, through the door. Let her know we're trying to help. It sounds crazy, I know, but look at Noah." Lily glanced at their son, who was babbling softly and reaching toward the front door, as if he could sense the mother bear's presence on the other side. With a deep breath, Lily approached the door. "We're helping your baby," she said, feeling ridiculous but desperate. "We're trying to warm it up. Please don't break our door down." To her amazement, the scratching stopped. She peered through the peephole and saw the bear sitting on their porch, her huge body blocking most of the view. The bear huffed, her breath visible in the cold air, but she made no more attempts to break in. "I can't believe I'm talking to a bear," Lily whispered, returning to Ben's side with the towels. Ben had managed to warm the cub slightly, and its breathing was stronger now. He carefully wrapped it in a warm towel, continuing to rub its fur gently. "Come on, little one. Your mama's waiting for you." Just as the words left his mouth, an alarming sound filled the cabin. Sirens. Through the window, they could see 2 ranger vehicles pulling up, lights flashing against the snow. "The Rangers," Lily said. "Someone must have called them about the bear." Ben's face paled. "They'll shoot her." If they see a bear that close to a house, they'll consider her a threat and put her down. But she hasn't done anything, Lily protested, suddenly finding herself defending the very animal she had been terrified of minutes ago. They don't know that. Ben carefully handed the bundled cub to Lily. Keep warming it. I'll go talk to them before they do something drastic. He hurried to the door, opening it just a crack to avoid letting the cold in or giving the mother bear a chance to enter. To his relief, she was no longer on the porch but had retreated to the edge of the clearing, watching the new arrivals with visible tension. 4 rangers approached the cabin, rifles at the ready as they scanned the area. The lead ranger, a tall woman with a stern expression, spotted Ben. "Sir, please stay inside. We've had reports of a mother bear in this area. She's potentially dangerous." "Wait," Ben called out, stepping onto the porch despite the cold. "Don't shoot her. She's not aggressive." The ranger looked at him skeptically. "Sir, black bears with cubs are extremely unpredictable and dangerous. Please go back inside while we handle this." "You don't understand," Ben insisted. "Her cub was trapped under the snow. We're helping it, warming it up inside. That's why she's here. She's waiting for her baby." The rangers exchanged disbelieving glances. The lead ranger approached cautiously. "You're telling me you have a bear cub in your house, and the mother is just letting you?" "I know how it sounds," Ben admitted. "But it's true. The cub was buried in a collapsed snow tunnel. It nearly froze to death. We're trying to save it." The ranger studied Ben's face, looking for signs of deception or delusion. Finding none, she signaled to her colleagues to lower their weapons, though they remained alert. "Show me," she said finally. Ben led the ranger into the cabin while the others maintained their positions outside, keeping a watchful eye on the mother bear, who had begun pacing anxiously. Inside, Lily had managed to rouse the cub slightly. Its eyes were open now, small, dark beads that blinked sluggishly as it tried to make sense of its surroundings. Noah watched from his playpen, oddly silent and focused. The ranger knelt beside Lily, her trained eyes assessing the cub's condition. "It's suffering from hypothermia and possibly oxygen deprivation," she said. "But it's young and resilient. You may have saved its life." She looked up at Ben and Lily with newfound respect. "I've never seen anything like this. Mother bears are fiercely protective. For her to allow you to take her cub—" A commotion outside interrupted her. One of the rangers shouted, and they heard the distinctive sound of a rifle being readied. "No!" Ben rushed to the window. The mother bear had started moving toward the cabin, her powerful form cutting through the snow with determination. The rangers outside had formed a line, their rifles aimed at the advancing bear. One fired a warning shot into the air, but the sound only seemed to agitate the mother bear further. She let out a roar that shook the windows of the cabin and continued her approach. "Tell them not to shoot," Ben pleaded with the lead ranger. "She just wants her cub back." The ranger grabbed her radio. "Hold your fire," she commanded. "I repeat, hold your fire unless directly charged." She turned to Ben and Lily. "We need to reunite them, but safely. Is the cub strong enough to move?" Lily looked down at the small bundle in her arms. The cub was more alert now, making small movements and soft noises. "I think so." "Then here's what we're going to do," the ranger said, her voice calm but authoritative. "I'll take the cub out on the porch. The rest of you stay inside. If the mother approaches calmly, I'll set the cub down and back away slowly. If not—" She didn't finish the sentence, but they all understood the implications. Ben wasn't satisfied with the plan. "Let me do it," he insisted. "She's seen me with her cub already. She didn't attack then." The ranger shook her head firmly. "This is not a negotiation, sir. This is a wild animal situation that requires professional handling. But as they argued, Lily noticed something alarming. The playpen where Noah had been watching quietly was now empty. "Noah?" she called out, panic rising in her voice. "Noah, where are you?" The three adults searched the room frantically, but there was no sign of the baby. Then Ben noticed the small side door that led from the kitchen to the backyard was slightly ajar, a door they rarely used and had forgotten to child-proof. "No," he gasped, yanking the door open wider. Small footprints in the snow led around the side of the cabin, tiny, irregular depressions that could only have been made by a baby who had just learned to walk. Outside, the rangers were still focused on the mother bear, who had stopped advancing but remained tensely alert about 30 yards from the cabin. None of them had noticed the small figure that had somehow made its way outside and was now toddling through the snow, directly toward the massive wild animal. "Noah!" Lily's scream pierced the air as she spotted her baby from the window. The rangers turned, their weapons swinging in confusion, trying to locate the new threat. And then everyone froze, witnessing a scene that defied explanation. Noah, bundled in his winter onesie, wobbled determinedly through the snow toward the mother bear. His tiny legs struggled with each step, but his face showed no fear, only the same strange certainty they had seen earlier. The mother bear watched the approaching baby, her posture changing from aggression to curiosity. "Don't move," the lead ranger whispered harshly. "Nobody move or shoot. Any sudden action could trigger her predatory response." But Ben and Lily couldn't stand by while their baby approached a wild bear. They burst through the front door, ready to race to their child, only to be physically restrained by the rangers. "You'll get him killed," one hissed, holding Ben back with surprising strength. "Wait." Noah had reached a point about 10 feet from the mother bear. He stopped, his little legs tired from the journey through the deep snow. For a moment, bear and baby regarded each other in silence. One, a powerful predator capable of killing with a single swipe. The other, a defenseless human child who couldn't even form words yet. Then Noah did something that left everyone breathless. He held out his small hand toward the bear and made the same humming sound they had heard earlier, a strange musical tone that seemed to carry through the winter air with unusual clarity. The mother bear tilted her head, listening. She lowered her massive body until she was lying in the snow, her threatening posture completely gone. With slow, deliberate movements, she began to crawl forward on her belly, approaching Noah with what could only be described as deference. "This isn't possible," the lead ranger whispered, her scientific training at war with what her eyes were witnessing. Noah continued humming, unafraid as the bear came within touching distance. She sniffed the air around him, her wet nose almost touching his outstretched hand. Then, as if coming to a decision, the mother bear gently pressed her head against Noah's tiny palm. A collective gasp rose from the watching adults. Even the most seasoned rangers had never seen a wild bear behave this way, especially not a mother separated from her cub. It was as if Noah possessed some ability to communicate with the animal on a level beyond human understanding. Lily and Ben watched in awe and terror, their bodies tense and ready to spring forward at the first sign of danger. But Noah showed no fear. He patted the bear's head with the clumsy gentleness of a baby, gurgling happily as if he'd just found a new, oversized pet. After what seemed like an eternity, but was probably only seconds, Noah turned and pointed back toward the cabin, making insistent noises. Then he began his wobbly journey back, occasionally looking over his shoulder as if expecting the bear to follow. And remarkably, she did. The mother bear rose to her feet and walked slowly behind Noah, maintaining a respectful distance but clearly following his lead. The Rangers kept their weapons ready but held their fire, too astonished to intervene in whatever inexplicable event was unfolding before them. When Noah reached his parents, he held up his arms to be picked up. Lily scooped him into her embrace, tears streaming down her face as she checked him for any sign of harm. Finding none, she looked up at the mother bear, who had stopped a few yards away, watching them with intelligent eyes. "I think," Ben said slowly, still cradling the warming cub in his arms, "Noah wants us to return her baby." The lead ranger, her face pale with disbelief, nodded. "Carefully, place the cub on the ground and back away. Let's see what happens." Ben knelt and gently set the bundled cub on the snow. The small creature had recovered enough to wiggle and make soft whimpering sounds. The warm towel around it preserved the heat they had worked so hard to restore. The mother bear approached cautiously, her nose twitching as she inhaled the scent of her cub mixed with human smells. She nudged the bundle with her snout, carefully turning it until the cub's face was visible. A soft sound of recognition emanated from her throat as she began to tenderly lick her baby's face. The cub responded to its mother's touch, its small paws reaching up to bat at her muzzle in a gesture that was heartbreakingly similar to the way Noah reached for Lily's face. The mother bear continued grooming her cub, each lick seeming to infuse more life into the small body. After several minutes, the cub was strong enough to stand on wobbling legs. The mother bear gently took the scruff of its neck between her teeth and lifted it, preparing to carry it back to the safety of the forest. Before leaving, she turned to face the humans one last time. Her dark eyes seemed to hold an intelligence that transcended animal instinct, a wisdom and gratitude that left them all speechless. She looked directly at Noah, who was still in Lily's arms, and made a soft huffing sound that echoed in the clearing. Noah responded with a delighted giggle and waved his small hand in what looked remarkably like goodbye. Then, with her precious cargo secure, the mother bear turned and walked slowly back toward the forest edge. The Rangers lowered their weapons, their faces reflecting the awe and disbelief that everyone felt. "In 20 years on this job," the lead ranger said quietly, "I've never seen anything like that. It's as if your son, as if he could somehow communicate with her." Ben put his arm around Lily and Noah, pulling them close as they watched the bears disappear into the trees. "I don't think we'll ever be able to explain what happened here today," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Lily kissed Noah's head, still trying to process the miracle they had witnessed. "Maybe some things aren't meant to be explained," she whispered. As the family turned to go back inside, a strange shimmer appeared in the air where the bears had vanished. It was barely noticeable, a faint distortion like heat rising from summer pavement, except it was the middle of winter. "Did you see that?" Ben asked, squinting toward the forest edge. Lily followed his gaze. "See what?" "That shimmer, like the air was bending somehow." The lead ranger overheard him. "Probably just snow blowing off the trees," she said pragmatically, though her voice lacked conviction. She seemed eager to find a rational explanation for everything that had just happened. The Rangers stayed for another hour, taking detailed notes and photographs of the snow tunnel collapse site. They seemed particularly interested in Noah, watching him with curious eyes as he played contentedly in his high chair, completely unaware of how extraordinary his actions had been. "We'll need to file a full report on this incident," the lead ranger, who had introduced herself as Ranger Morgan, explained as she prepared to leave. "In my 15 years working with wildlife, I've never documented behavior like this from a black bear." She hesitated, then added in a lower voice, "There have been stories among the local indigenous people, the Anishinaabe tribe, about children with special connections to animals. They call them spirit talkers. I always thought they were just legends. Ben and Lily exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. The events of the morning already seemed dreamlike, as if they had collectively experienced a momentary departure from reality. "Your son is special," Ranger Morgan continued, watching Noah with thoughtful eyes. "You might want to speak with Elder Joseph at the Tribal Center. He knows more about these things than anyone else in the valley." After the Rangers left, the cabin felt strangely empty despite the family of 3. Lily made hot chocolate while Ben built up the fire, both of them stealing glances at Noah, who was happily stacking wooden blocks as if nothing unusual had happened. "Should we be concerned?" Lily asked quietly, handing Ben a steaming mug. "About Noah, I mean. What he did today wasn't normal." Ben took a long sip before answering. "I don't know. He saved that cub's life. He stopped the mother from attacking us. Whatever connection he has with those bears, it seems like a gift, not something to worry about." Lily nodded slowly. "Maybe we should talk to this Elder Joseph, though. If nothing else, I'd like to understand what happened today." Ben agreed, and they decided to visit the tribal center the following day. With that plan in place, they tried to return to their normal routine, but the memory of Noah facing down a full-grown bear kept intruding on their thoughts. That night, after putting Noah to bed, Ben stepped outside onto the porch to bring in more firewood. The night was crystal clear, stars blazing in the black sky with an intensity only found far from city lights. He paused, breathing in the cold air and replaying the day's events in his mind. A soft crunching sound in the snow made him turn sharply. There, at the edge of the porch light's reach, stood the mother bear. Ben's heart hammered in his chest as he slowly backed toward the door, eyes fixed on the massive creature. But the bear made no move to approach. She simply stood watching him, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. After a moment, she raised her head slightly and Ben followed her gaze upward. Above them, the northern lights had begun to dance across the sky, ribbons of green and purple undulating against the stars. Ben had seen the aurora borealis before, but never with such vivid intensity. The lights seemed to pulse and swirl directly above their cabin, illuminating the snow with an otherworldly glow. As Ben watched in wonder, the mother bear turned and disappeared into the darkness. He hurried inside to call Lily, and they stood together at the window, arms around each other, watching the celestial display with a mixture of awe and unease. "It's beautiful," Lily whispered, "but doesn't it seem focused, like it's concentrated right above us?" Ben nodded, the strange events of the day making him open to possibilities he would have dismissed yesterday. "She was out there," he said quietly. "The mother bear, she was watching our cabin." Lily tensed. "Should we be worried?" "No," Ben said with surprising certainty. "I don't think she means us any harm. It felt more like, I don't know, like she was standing guard." They checked on Noah before going to bed and found him sleeping peacefully, his small chest rising and falling with each breath, one arm wrapped around his stuffed rabbit. Everything about him looked normal, a typical baby having typical baby dreams. It was hard to reconcile this innocent image with the child who had fearlessly approached a wild bear. The next morning dawned bright and clear. The snow sparkled under the sunlight as if tiny diamonds had been scattered across the valley overnight. Ben made calls to arrange a meeting with Elder Joseph while Lily dressed Noah in his warmest clothes. "We're going on a little adventure today," she told him as she zipped up his snowsuit. Noah babbled happily in response, his blue eyes bright with excitement. The tribal center was located about 20 miles from their cabin, a beautiful wooden building nestled against the base of Eagle Mountain. Intricate carvings adorned the entrance, animals, birds, and symbols that Ben and Lily couldn't identify, but sensed were deeply significant. Elder Joseph was waiting for them in a circular room with a skylight that allowed sunlight to pour in. He was an imposing figure despite his age. Tall and straight-backed, with long silver hair tied neatly at the nape of his neck. His dark eyes seemed to hold centuries of wisdom, and his weathered face broke into a gentle smile when they entered. "I've been expecting you," he said, his voice deep and melodious. "News travels quickly in our small valley, especially news as unusual as yours." He bent down to Noah's level, studying the baby with intense interest. Noah stared back without shyness, then broke into a delighted smile and reached for the elder's turquoise necklace. "Ah," Elder Joseph said softly. "Yes, I see it now." "See what?" Ben asked, his arm automatically going around Lily's shoulders. The elder straightened slowly, his joints protesting with audible cracks. "Please, sit," he said, gesturing to comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. He lifted Noah onto his lap with practiced ease, and to Lily's surprise, Noah settled there contentedly. "There is a very old story among our people," Elder Joseph began, gently bouncing Noah on his knee. "A story about children who are born with the ability to speak the forgotten language, the first language that all creatures once shared before humans separated themselves from the natural world." He looked down at Noah, who was playing with the turquoise pendant, completely at ease with this stranger. "These children are very rare. In my lifetime, I have met only 2 others. They are called Animoshkazowin in our language, the ones who speak with spirit." Ben leaned forward, fascinated despite his natural skepticism. "And you think Noah is one of these special children?" Elder Joseph nodded. "The signs are unmistakable. The connection with animals that should fear humans. The sounds he makes that calm wild creatures. The northern lights appearing directly above your home. These are all hallmarks of Animoshkazowin." Lily's brow furrowed with concern. "Is it dangerous for him, this ability?" "It is a gift," the elder said firmly. "But like all gifts, it carries responsibility. Your son will be drawn to animals in need. He will feel their pain, their fear, their joy. It may be overwhelming at times." He smiled down at Noah, who had fallen asleep against his chest, tiny fingers still clutching the turquoise pendant. "But if you nurture this connection rather than fear it, he will grow into it naturally. The ability often fades as children learn human language and human ways, though some retain echoes of it throughout their lives." "That's why he knew the cub was trapped," Ben said, realization dawning. He could feel its fear. Elder Joseph nodded, and the mother bear recognized his spirit for what it was, pure and connected to the old ways. That is why she did not harm him. In her eyes, he was not a threat but a bridge between worlds. The conversation continued for hours, with Elder Joseph sharing stories of other spirit talkers throughout history, children who had called whales to shore to be rescued, who had walked among wolf packs unharmed, who had predicted earthquakes by sensing animals fleeing. As they prepared to leave, the elder pressed a small wooden carving into Lily's hand, a bear with a tiny figure beside it. "Keep this close to him. It will help focus his gift and protect him during the transition times when the veil between worlds grows thin." "Transition times?" Ben asked. "The solstices, the equinoxes, times when the natural world shifts and changes." The elder's eyes grew distant. "And times of great natural disturbance." The cryptic warning lingered in their minds as they drove home, Noah sleeping peacefully in his car seat, unaware of the extraordinary future being predicted for him. That evening, as the sun began to set, casting long purple shadows across the snow. Lily placed the wooden carving on the shelf above Noah's crib. The simple object seemed to radiate a subtle warmth, and she found herself drawing comfort from its presence. Ben joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist as they watched their sleeping son. "Do you think we should be worried about what Elder Joseph said about the transition times?" Lily leaned back against him, seeking his familiar strength. "I don't know. Part of me thinks this is all too fantastic to be real. But after what we saw yesterday—" Her voice trailed off as a strange sound drifted through the partially open window. A deep, rumbling vibration that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "What was that?" Ben whispered, tightening his hold on Lily. The sound came again, louder this time, followed by a series of sharp cracks that echoed across the valley. Noah stirred in his sleep, his small face scrunching with distress. Ben rushed to the window, peering out into the gathering darkness. "Oh my God," he breathed. Lily joined him, and her hand flew to her mouth in shock. Across the valley, the mountain was moving. A massive section of snow and ice was breaking away, gathering speed as it thundered down toward the forest below. "Avalanche," Ben said, his voice tight with fear. "A big one." They watched in horrified fascination as the wall of snow crashed through the trees, uprooting everything in its path. Even from this distance, they could feel the ground trembling beneath their feet. Noah began to cry, but it wasn't his usual cry for food or comfort. This was something different, a high, keening sound that raised the hair on the back of Lily's neck. "Something's wrong," she said, rushing to pick him up. "He's burning up." Ben pressed his hand to Noah's forehead and felt an alarming heat radiating from the baby's skin. "He needs a doctor. We should take him to the emergency room in Lakeville." Lily nodded, already gathering supplies for the 40-minute drive. As they hurried to prepare, the lights in the cabin flickered once, twice, then went out completely. "Power's gone," Ben muttered, reaching for his phone to use as a flashlight. Probably from the avalanche. He tried to call the hospital to let them know they were coming, but there was no signal. "Phone's out too. The avalanche must have taken down the cell tower." Lily felt a growing sense of dread. "Ben, I don't think we can make it to Lakeville. The main road runs right below where that avalanche hit. It's probably blocked." Ben's face paled as he realized she was right. They were effectively cut off from civilization, with a sick baby and no power in the middle of winter. Noah's cries had changed again, becoming softer but more urgent. He twisted in Lily's arms, reaching toward the front door with desperate intensity. "He wants to go outside," Lily said uncertainly, "just like yesterday with the bear." Ben hesitated, torn between his rational concern for Noah's fever and the memory of his son's inexplicable connection to the natural world. "It's freezing out there, and he's already sick." "I know, but—" Lily looked down at Noah's flushed face, at the determination in his blue eyes so unusual for a child his age. "What if this is connected to what Elder Joseph told us about him sensing animals in distress?" The rumbling had stopped, but in the eerie silence that followed, they could hear new sounds, distant cries and calls that didn't seem entirely animal in nature. "Wrap him up," Ben decided, grabbing additional blankets. "We'll go out for just a minute. If his connection with the bears is real, maybe he's sensing something about the avalanche that we need to know." They bundled Noah in layers of warm clothing and stepped out onto the porch. The night had turned pitch black with the power outage, the stars obscured by clouds that had moved in with unsettling speed. Ben's flashlight cut a weak path through the darkness as they followed Noah's insistent pointing. To their surprise, the mother bear was waiting at the edge of their yard, her dark form barely visible against the trees. Beside her stood the cub they had rescued, seemingly fully recovered from its ordeal. "She came back," Lily whispered, clutching Noah closer. "Why?" The mother bear made a low, huffing sound and turned, clearly expecting them to follow. The cub bounded ahead a few steps, then looked back as if to hurry them along. "I think they want us to go with them," Ben said, his voice reflecting his disbelief at the situation. Lily looked from the bears to the dark cabin behind them. "Elder Joseph said Noah would be drawn to animals in need. What if there are people trapped by the avalanche? What if the bears know where they are?" It sounded absurd, even as she said it, but the events of the past 2 days had pushed the boundaries of what they considered possible. "We need to trust him," Ben said finally, making the decision. "If Noah's gift is real, if he's truly connected to these bears, then this might be our only chance to help anyone caught in that avalanche." They stepped off the porch, following as the bears led them along a narrow path through the trees. Noah had stopped crying, his fever-bright eyes fixed on the animals ahead. Occasionally, he would make soft humming sounds that seemed to encourage the bears onward. The path climbed steadily upward, away from their cabin and toward the area where the avalanche had struck. Lily's arms ached from carrying Noah, but she refused Ben's offers to take him, driven by a mother's instinct to keep her child close in danger. After 20 minutes of difficult hiking through snow that sometimes reached their knees, they heard it. A faint call for help, barely audible above the wind that had begun to pick up. Ben froze, lifting his flashlight higher. "Hello?" he called out. "Is someone there?" The mother bear had stopped as well, her massive head turning toward a jumble of broken trees and snow to their right. The cub pawed at the snow, making small distress noises. "There!" Ben aimed his flashlight where the cub was digging and caught a flash of color. Bright orange fabric against the white snow. "It's a jacket!" They rushed forward, and as they got closer, they could see that the orange jacket belonged to a man who was partially buried beneath a fallen tree and several feet of snow. Only his head and one arm were visible, his face pale with cold and pain. "Help!" he gasped when he saw them, his voice weak. "My leg. Trapped." Ben handed Lily the flashlight and began digging frantically, trying to clear the snow around the injured man. To their astonishment, the mother bear joined in, her powerful paws moving more snow in one swipe than Ben could in several minutes. The man's eyes widened in terror when he saw the bear. What's happening?" "It's okay," Lily assured him, though she could hardly believe her own words. "They're helping us find you." Noah made a series of soft sounds, reaching toward the bear and the trapped man. His fever seemed to be burning even hotter now, his small body trembling with its intensity. As they worked to free the man, who introduced himself as Doctor. Marcus Chen, a wildlife biologist who had been studying migration patterns in the area, Noah's condition deteriorated. His eyes began to roll back in his head, and his limbs went limp. "Noah!" Lily cried out, terror gripping her heart. "Ben, something's wrong with him." Ben turned from his digging, his face contorting with fear when he saw his son's condition. Dr. Chen, despite his own pain, immediately shifted into medical mode. "Bring him closer," he instructed. "I'm a doctor, not pediatrics, but I have medical training." Lily knelt beside him, holding Noah where Dr. Chen could examine him with his free hand. The man frowned, feeling Noah's pulse and touching his burning forehead. "He's having some kind of neurological event," he said grimly. possibly triggered by extreme fever. We need to get his temperature down immediately." But they were miles from the cabin, in the middle of a frozen forest, with no medical supplies. Lily felt panic rising in her throat, threatening to choke her. Just then, the mother bear made a soft whining sound and nudged Noah with her nose. To everyone's amazement, she then began to gently scoop clean snow with her paw, piling it where Lily could reach it. "She wants us to use the snow to cool him down," Dr. Chen said, his scientific skepticism clearly at war with what he was witnessing. Lily hesitated only briefly before taking handfuls of the clean snow and applying it to Noah's forehead, wrists, and neck, the pulse points where cooling would be most effective. The baby's eyelids fluttered at the contact, but he remained unconscious. Meanwhile, Ben had managed to clear most of the snow around Dr. Chen and was working on moving the tree trunk that pinned the man's leg. The cub stayed close to Noah and Lily, occasionally licking Noah's hand with its rough tongue as if trying to comfort him. "This is impossible, Doctor," Chen murmured, watching the bear's behavior with professional fascination despite his pain. Black bears don't behave this way with humans, especially not mothers with cubs. "Our son has a special connection with them," Ben explained between grunts as he strained against the heavy tree trunk. "It sounds crazy, but he saved their cub yesterday and now they're returning the favor, Doctor." Chen finished, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "I've studied animal behavior for 20 years, and I've never encountered anything remotely like this. It challenges everything we know about interspecies interaction." With the mother bear's help, Ben finally managed to move the tree trunk enough for Dr. Chen to pull his injured leg free. The limb was clearly broken, the awkward angle leaving no room for doubt. "We need to splint this before moving him," Ben said, looking around for suitable materials. As if understanding, the mother bear disappeared into the trees, returning moments later dragging a straight branch in her mouth. She dropped it beside Doctor Chen's injured leg and looked at Ben expectantly. "Okay, now I've seen everything," Dr. Chen said with a slightly hysterical laugh. "A bear bringing first aid supplies." Ben used his knife to cut strips from his thermal undershirt, creating bindings to secure the branch as a makeshift splint. Dr. Chen guided him through the process, gritting his teeth against the pain. "How's Noah?" Ben asked as he worked, afraid to hear the answer. Lily had been continuously applying snow to Noah's overheated skin, and to her immense relief, his temperature seemed to be dropping. "I think the fever's breaking," she said, hope creeping into her voice. "His breathing is more regular now." Dr. Chen reached out to check Noah's pulse again and nodded. "Better. Still too fast, but better. We need to get him to a hospital as soon as possible, though. Febrile seizures in infants can be dangerous." "You too," Ben said, finishing the splint. "That leg needs proper medical attention." The immediate crisis addressed, they faced a new problem: how to transport both Noah and the injured doctor back to civilization through deep snow in the dark, with an avalanche potentially blocking the main road out of the valley. As if sensing their dilemma, the mother bear made a series of huffing sounds and lowered her massive body to the ground, looking back at them with what could only be described as expectation. "I think," Dr. Chen said slowly, his scientific worldview visibly crumbling, "she's offering us a ride." Ben and Lily looked at each other, the same thought mirrored in their eyes. How could they possibly consider riding a wild bear? Yet the alternative was equally unthinkable. Trudging through deep snow in the dark with a sick baby and an injured man, possibly taking hours to reach help. "We can't," Lily said, clutching Noah tighter. "It's too dangerous." The mother bear seemed to understand their hesitation. She moved closer to Doctor Chen, who was struggling to stand on his broken leg, and gently nudged him with her massive head. The gesture was unmistakably supportive, like a friend offering a shoulder to lean on. Dr. Chen looked up at them, his face pale with pain but resolute. "I've spent my career studying animals," he said. "Every instinct tells me this shouldn't be happening, yet here we are. Whatever connection your son has with these bears, it's real, and right now, it might be our only chance." As if to emphasize the urgency, Noah stirred in Lily's arms, his small voice weak but insistent. "Bah," he said clearly, his first real word, and he was looking directly at the mother bear. "Did he just—" Ben started, his voice trailing off in wonder. "Bear?" Lily finished softly. "He said bear?" The mother bear made a deep, rumbling sound in her chest that almost sounded like approval. She lowered herself even further, her massive frame settling into the snow, like a living, breathing vehicle. "I'll go first, Doctor," Chen said, dragging himself toward the bear with obvious effort. If she wanted to hurt us, she would have done it already. Using his good leg and Ben's support, Dr. Chen managed to position himself on the bear's broad back, gripping her thick fur with trembling hands. The bear remained perfectly still, patient as a trained horse. "This is insane," Ben muttered, but he was already helping Lily and Noah approach. "Absolutely insane." The cub bounded around them excitedly, as if encouraging them to hurry. Its youthful energy seemed at odds with the seriousness of the situation, but somehow its playfulness eased their fear. With Ben's help, Lily carefully mounted the bear behind Dr. Chen, Noah secure in her arms. The baby's fever had broken, but he remained weak, his head lolling against Lily's chest. Ben climbed on last, his arms wrapping protectively around his family. "I can't believe we're doing this," Lily whispered, feeling the bear's powerful muscles beneath them, the warmth of her body radiating through the thick fur. The mother bear rose slowly, adjusting to their weight with surprising grace. She made a soft huffing sound to her cub, who immediately took the lead, bounding ahead through the snow with obvious familiarity. As they began to move, Ben realized the bears weren't taking them back the way they had come. Instead, they were heading deeper into the forest, following a path that seemed to wind around the worst of the avalanche damage. "Where are they taking us?" he wondered aloud. Dr. Chen, despite his pain, was observing everything with scientific fascination. "They know this terrain better than any human," he said through gritted teeth. "Look at how the cub is choosing the route, avoiding deep drifts, staying on packed snow. It's remarkable." The ride was surreal. The mother bear moved with a rolling gait that was surprisingly smooth, her massive paws finding purchase even on icy slopes. The forest passed by in a blur of shadows and snow-laden branches, the only sounds their breathing and the soft crunch of the bear's steps. Noah had fallen into a deep sleep in Lily's arms, his small body finally relaxing as his fever fully broke. Occasionally, he would murmur something that sounded almost like the bear's huffing sounds, as if even in sleep he was communicating with their unlikely rescuers. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 45 minutes, the trees began to thin. Ahead, they could see lights. Not the harsh fluorescence of civilization, but the warm, flickering glow of firelight. "What is that?" Lily asked, squinting through the darkness. As they drew closer, the answer became apparent. It was a camp of some kind, several traditional-looking structures arranged in a clearing, with a large central fire burning brightly. Figures moved around the flames, their shadows dancing on the snow. The mother bear slowed as they approached, and the cub ran ahead, making excited sounds. Several people emerged from the structures, and Ben recognized the tall figure of Elder Joseph among them. "Welcome," the elder called out, showing no surprise at seeing them arrive on the back of a bear. "We've been expecting you." "Expecting us?" Ben asked as the bear lowered herself so they could dismount. "How could you possibly?" Elder Joseph smiled mysteriously. "The same way we knew the avalanche was coming. The same way we know why your son's fever struck when it did. Come, let's get the injured man and the child inside where it's warm." Several younger tribe members rushed forward to help Dr. Chen, supporting him as he slid off the bear's back with a groan of relief. One of them, a woman in her 30s with a medical bag, immediately began examining his leg. "I'm Dr. Sarah Crow Wing." She introduced herself as she worked. "MD from Johns Hopkins, but I practice traditional healing as well. This is a bad break, but we can stabilize it here before transport." Lily allowed another woman to guide her and Noah into one of the structures, a modern building designed to look traditional from the outside. Inside, it was warm and well-equipped, with both medical supplies and traditional herbs hanging from the rafters. "Let me see the little one," the woman said gently. She appeared to be in her 60s with kind eyes and skilled hands that spoke of long experience with children. As she examined Noah, who was beginning to wake up, she made small sounds of interest. "His temperature is normal now, but there's something else. May I?" She gestured to a bundle of sage.